Alright, so starting with a new project, Raptor is a bit of an odd one when it comes to slicing. You'll see there's a project file like most of my other blasters, but if you open up any of these, you'll find a project file for each section. So what I would recommend doing is going over to the grips and opening up the grips project file, dragging that over, and then picking which grip you're using, whether it's the semi, select, or one of the select fire ones. I'm going to stick with the semi grip. Then what we can do is delete the other two from our file, and just remove those build plates to make it nice and make it a little bit cleaner. Now what we're going to do is go over to Magwells and open up the Magwell project. You just drag that into the same one and import as geometry only. You'll see it loads the new project onto whichever active build plate you're using. But then you can pick which Magwell you're using. In this case, we're going to slice it up with the Moose Mag, so I can go over here and just press delete to get rid of the other two. So that's our grip and our Magwell. The last thing we need for a full blaster is a flywheel set. In this case, let's load up the dual stage micro front. Again, import as geometry only. You can see all of our parts here. And just to walk you through it, I'll also load up a front attachment and a stock point so you can see all of the things. So this plate will bring in the front attachments, and on this one we'll open up. And on this one we'll open up the stock points, or the stock attachments rather. Which, because it's a multi-plate file, loads up a little bit weirdly. So when it comes to front attachments, we're just going to go with the long tenderizer, so we can delete the other two. When it comes to stocks, go with an end strike attachment. And these are all assemblies, so they should be able to pretty easily get deleted. So now what you're going to want to do is, because each of these is an assembly, it'll be a little bit hard to rearrange these and divide it by color. But you can do is click on one of them, right click on it, and split two objects. And we're just going to go through. We'll need to do this for grips, front attachments, and stock attachments, but not for flywheel sections. So just right click on it, split two objects, right click, split two objects, and over here they're already separate parts. Also over here we have the flywheel cages all laid out, and they're also laid out for full wheel versions. There's just a lot more of those. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go for 22mm cage, and just leave that one. And now all you got to do is arrange the plates based on the part color. So we're going to say that this plate with the front attachment is our orange plate. So we can just click and drag all of our orange parts over there. We'll put all of our black parts on the second plate with our magwell. Rearrange that so we can fit the grip and such. And then on this first plate, we'll put all of the blue parts. And just like that, we have the build plate of each part, each color. And the supports should be painted on all of these. For the flywheel fronts, there's some supports for the sling points, but otherwise no support. These back sections want a little bit of support up here, or can use a little bit of support up here by the takedown pins. It's not 100% necessary, but is useful. Can make the parts a bit cleaner and also makes assembly a little bit smoother. Coming over here to the black parts, all the flywheel cages will need support in the motor wells. They weren't designed to be printed supportless, so that's something for future designs, but for now, all the motor spouts will need supports. None of the magwell bottoms will need support. The magwell top for the elite, for the full-length magwell rather, will, but the moose and talon magwells won't. When it comes to flywheel sections, you'll need a little bit of support at the bottom for the lower rail, and then a little bit at the back for these two arms, where it connects with and interfaces with the magwell. Also, the full wheel versions will need some support on the bottom of the cheeks for the motors. And that's all those ones need. When it comes to the grip, these mostly just need support at the bottom here. Just go around like so, and also at the top is the trigger wheel, and that's it. Just everything on the bottom and the trigger wheel, and you'll be good to go. Then it comes to the solenoid cage. This just needs a little bit on the bottom surfaces to keep it attached and keep those printing correctly. Also, it can be worth adding some support up here along the edge where it nests around the solenoid spring, just to keep that printed nicely. You don't need support all the way in here. This will print pretty well on most printers. If your printer is bad at bridging, then you might want support in there. But otherwise, you should be fine. And lastly, heading over here to the orange parts, so rearrange these a little bit, make it a little bit denser. The front attachments don't need much support. The long one, the main long attachment does, but the tenderizer ones do not. The front muzzle for all the front ends only needs a tiny bit of support up at the front. If your printer can't handle 30-degree overhangs, then obviously they'll need a lot more support. But if it can handle those, then only these two spots will need support. The mag releases just need a bit of support from the inside to keep this corner from rounding, and to keep that nice and flat so the spring can run smoothly in there. The trigger and rev trigger will be fine on their own, and then the rail wants a bunch of support on the bottom there, over here for the dart guide, and then a little bit next to this interface can help, just on the two small flat surfaces there and there. And if you want to, you can put support on the inside. I found you don't have to, but it can be useful. If you do put support in there, I'd recommend using tree supports, as that's much easier to remove. But that is it.
You got printed parts and wires and everything. Time to put it all together. So we're going to start with the grip this time. Now, in my case, it's already wired, but I'll do my best to walk you through the wiring. When it comes to the XT60, they've labeled positive and negative, so we'll be working with those. But positive from there will go up to the middle pin on both switches. The right-hand switch is the trigger switch, which can go directly to your solenoid, and the left-hand switch is the rev trigger switch, so that will go to one side of your Dean's connector. And the other side of that Dean's connector, along with the other side of the solenoid, will go to negative will go to negative either directly to the XT60, or it can meet up and then go to the XT60. Now when it comes to the select fire versions, that's going to be done a little bit differently. Battery positive and negative will go into the microcontroller, and the rev trigger circuit will be the same, with negative for rev going right over to the Dean's connector, and positive going to the switch, and then the other side of that switch going to battery positive. And then when it comes to the select fire stuff, the normally closed on the trigger will go to pin A1 on the microcontroller. Pin 10 on the microcontroller will go to the MOSFET. We'll get to that in a second. And the 5 volt from the microcontroller will go to the trigger and to the selector switch. So for the selector switch, the 5 volts goes to the middle pin on it. If there were 5 pins on it as opposed to the 4, it would go to the middle pin. There's a little bit of a gap, and then there's the 3 pins in a row. It goes to the first of those 3 pins. The pin all on its own goes to A2 on the microcontroller. Then there's the 5 volt. Then the next one goes to A3 on the microcontroller, and the one at the other end goes to A4 on the microcontroller. So again, assuming you have the 3 pins together and then the one on its own, A2, and you have 5 volts, A3, and A4. when it comes to the MOSFET, with the flat part of it laying on the table, the left-hand pin goes to pin 10 on the microcontroller. The middle part of it, the middle pin on the MOSFET, goes to negative from the battery, and the right hand goes to the solenoid, while the other side of the solenoid goes directly to positive. And the resistor will go from the left pin directly over to the right pin. This can nest really easily on the little ledge at the top of the MOSFET, or can go in other positions on it, as long as it's only connecting the left pin to the right pin of the MOSFET. There's also a diagram linked down, or a better description of this linked down below if you want to take a look. Now, when it comes to the mechanical assembly, you'll have one M3 bolt that'll go right through. Your turrets will get pushed up. You may need a little bit of force to get them through. Just make sure they're running in the channel there. And you'll have one M3 nut and the M3 bolt to go in there. Next, we'll take one of the other M3 nuts and the shortest screw. The M3 nut will go on the inside of the grip. We're going to put that in there and push it down. And it should go flush with the surface down there, or just about there. Then the rail is going to go on top of that. And our little screw will go in the back on the rail. And that'll screw down just like so. When it comes to wiring, most of that is going to end up on the inside of the top rail and a little bit in the back of the blaster. But set that up just like so. So, one thing to note is we do have the two spots in the front here of the grip. So we'll put a nut in that gap and in the mirrored gap on the other side. The back, we'll put another one. And then we're going to go ahead and put the solenoid cage in. These two spots here are for MOSFETs if you want those for the solenoid and for rev. For me personally, I just use the switches, but with high enough power motors, you'd certainly want to use the MOSFET for them. But this will just go over the back of the solenoid. All the wires should end up behind it. It'll end up situated something like that. So next we're going to take side shell. Now if you were doing the select fire one, your select fire switch would end up about here, and you'd have an extra screw up here that would go through the selector lever and into the solenoid. But in this case, this is just the semi-auto one, so the side panel will just go on, something like that. Shorter screw will go in the top. Shorter screw will go on the top there, and it'll rest a little bit in there. One of the longer ones will go on the bottom. And the other longer one at the back. Like so. Then we'll flip it over and do the same thing on this side. The other nut in there. Put the panel on, and then put the screws in. Again, if you're doing the select fire version, select fire switch will go in a gap here. You'll have the select fire lever and linkage, and there will be an extra hole here, which a screw will go through into the solenoid. And then there will be a shorter screw there and there, as opposed to just the one. Another thing is we're going to use a flywheel screw up here to mount the female Dean's connector. And down here in the grip, there will be one nut which will go in from the back of the battery door, another which goes in the battery door, and then you'll have the thumb screw itself. So that way it's captive with the battery door, and then you can just slide it back and forth and tighten it down, like so. And if you find that the rev triggers are stuck, but it's still clicking, make sure that your switch isn't burned out and also that there isn't a short or something like that in the circuit. I've personally burned out a couple of switches on mine, mostly because I'm running ridiculous motors in it, but if you're doing a single stage setup with just about anything, then it should be fine with just the switch itself. Next up, we're going to do half-length magwell. In this case I have the Talon one. The Moose magwell is virtually the same for assembly. So, we're going to take the spring, tuck that into the top of the mag release, tuck that in like so. The M3 nut end up on one side, and then the M3 bolt will just go through from the other side. Like so. And that can just slide in. When it comes to the full length magwell, you have this short little connection in the top, which will have a male on the back of it and a female on the front. And then there's a spot for a flywheel screw to hold each end of that. There's just a short piece of wire on each side of that to hold it in place. For the mag release itself, it's very similar. Just the spring in there, and then kind of scoop it and push it in so the spring ends up about like that. One of the M3 nuts goes in on that side, and the M3 bolt will go through from the other side. Like so. Now when it comes to putting the top on, you have the two nuts and two screws. One nut will go into either side of the magwell, and there are little cubbies there. And then the top will go over it, and one screw through each side. And these ones you can tighten down all the way without worrying about it getting in the way or anything like that. Now, when it comes to the front, for the flywheels, I try to keep the vertical one, in terms of the blaster, the vertical one as the positive and the horizontal one as the negative. When it comes to wiring, we have red dot at the back right and front left, negative or positive across the back and negative across the front, just like so. I find it's easiest to do this and then feed the wires through, but your mileage may vary on that. So, and you may find it easier to do the end of the connection and then send them back and down. Now, when it comes to assembling it, we have the base section, which will just have wires go in that little channel, and the motors and such in there. It can fit 180 motors, if you're wondering. But and then there's a little dovetail at the bottom there, so that'll slide in nicely. And there's a little dovetail holding the bottom rail in place. Now when it comes to putting the top parts on, we'll first need to take two of the M3 nuts and put them in the front at either side of the barrel, there and there. And then another two are going to go inside each side panel, this little nook at the top. Then you can attach it on the sides. We're going to use the middle length screw. Will go on the front. the longer screw is going to go in the top. And then we'll take one nut, and it'll go on the inside of the bottom piece. And we'll put the screw in through there. And then we'll do the same on the other side. So, middle length screw in the front. Longer screw on the back top. And last nut on the inner side. And the screw through from the side. Like so. Now you can just plug it in. And go have some fun. On yours, that'll be the same length of takedown pin, but there's a little bit more space for them. That's why these ones are sticking out. But there you go. I hope your blaster serves you well. If you have any questions or anything like that, put them in the comment section or join the Discord server, assuming it's live at this point. And let me know. I'll try to get back to you quickly, or other people will if they've already built theirs. But thank you for watching, and until next time, happy blasting!